on the other one, you bastard!
Small-scale transformers are neat in their own right, but when you take a larger transformer and scale it down, there is a certain novelty to it. The Legends of Cybertron line was a great example of such. They were literally tiny versions of the larger toys. The engineering was remarkably similar. However, that line wasn't the first to do it. That kind of novelty is ripe for monetization, and Takara knew it. Taking nostalgic figures and making them tiny, well, that's a license to print money. So what would happen if you made the world's smallest Transformers? Well, they're not actually the world's smallest Transformers. They are the smallest transforming Transformers. It is a bit confusing, but let's dive deep into this rabbit hole. Right off the bat, you're gonna notice this thing is way zoomed out, but it's not the camera. It's the size of this thing. This thing is tiny. When they called this line the smallest transforming Transformers, they weren't kidding. These things are bloody ridiculous in how small they are. And that's part of the charm. I mean, you want tiny versions of G1 figures, then this is the line to go for. It is a bit of a double-edged sword because you are getting the G1 toy, faults and all. For example, if we were reviewing smallest transforming Starscream, this would be another story entirely. A much angrier story. But no, we kinda need a primer for the line since this is the first time I'm reviewing it on the channel. Suffice to say, I've handled the Countach mold from G1 a couple of times, and it is a pretty damn good mold, especially in car mode, and they've captured it remarkably well. Pretty sure it's a licensed alt mode, could be wrong, but I'm willing to bet it is. And my word, all of the details are here. I've got all the windows painted, which is a remarkable touch. A lot of Chug figures just leave those unpainted or they leave it without the lines between it. Since this is a Japanese made line for collectors, there's a greater attention to detail here, and I massively respect that. Of course, the wheels are solid, so they don't move on a figure this small, why would they? But look, they're painted and they've even got silver on it. And they've even got the tiny Fire Chief written there. That is adorable. Love the spoiler at the back, and they've painted the tail lights. Again, something Chug just does not do. This is the kind of vehicle mode where if you're a fan of the character, you're gonna love it. But if you're not a fan, then you're going to be taken on a journey. There's a lot to love here, even if you aren't familiar with the source material. I gotta say, I absolutely love the way this looks. It even looks pretty cool next to the Siege rendition with all the upgrades and stuff. Holds up remarkably well to this day, even to modern alt modes. And yes, this is a bit of a spacey one, but you kind of get the gist. Really, this is just an excuse for me to show Red Alert on screen because of all the upgrades I've done. I know what I'm doing, don't judge me. So yes, it is the smallest transforming Transformer indeed. Not world's smallest Transformers, as most people call them. It's a common error in this fandom, and I don't know why it's caught on for so long. In fact, I was calling it world's smallest Transformers for so long until I started researching for this video. And by research, I mean a 2-second Google search. Really not that hard, guys. Now, size-wise, he's 4.8 centimeters long, roughly 2 centimeters wide, and 1.2 centimeters tall. And for size comparisons, he's dwarfed by a standard Legion figure, Legends figure, Earthrise Micromaster, and Crumbs. Even G1 Micromasters tower over this thing. That is small. Despite its small size though, the transformation is not finicky at all. It's the G1 transformation, but it is scaled down remarkably well. Pull out these bits and yeah, I've never been a fan of sliding rails, but these do seem sturdy enough, and on a figure this small, doesn't seem like it's gonna break anytime soon. Pull out the feet like so. Now this sliding section I am a bit worried about. You want to gently move these out. These are the arms, and I'm really worried they're gonna break someday. I'm sure if you're careful they won't, but it still gives me the heebie-jeebies. Pull this section down, but not too far, otherwise it may fall off. Fold down the bonnet like so. Arms go down, and your tiny adorable G1 Red Alert. Now, as a recreation of the G1 toy, of course it's gonna have the hunchback, but the fact they were able to scale this down to such a small size without missing any of the detail, it is really commendable. The paint on the head's nothing special with just a bit of silver on the face, but it definitely conveys everything you could want from the figure. For a G1 toy as well, the back is remarkably clean. I mean, some of the G1 toys, they did have a bit of a backpack. Nothing by today's standards, but they were known for it. But I don't know, there's something weird about seeing a tiny Red Alert. There's not a lot you can complain about here. Yeah, the articulation is completely there's nothing in the legs. It's really just like a mini-bot with only the arms here and there, which makes sense given the size. What can you really do? And I guess that was the same with the source material, although the source material may have had a bend of the knee, I'm not too sure. But yeah, it's everything you like about Red Alert in a tiny package. Also, props to them for making the thighs red. I know that was a thing on the G1 toy, but the Siege version didn't do that, and it looked pretty ugly, so I had to fix it, and, you know, just, this is a really good-looking Red Alert. Red Alert is pretty easy to get wrong, and they got it right, so props to Takara. One thing you do have to be careful, though. This guy takes up a lot of space on the shelf. You gotta make some space for him, because he is a whopping 4.8 centimeters by 3 centimeters. Oh no! I'm just with you. Of course he gets towered over once again by a standard Legion figure. Standard Legends figure, bringing the camera up so you can see just how tall he is. Standard Earthrise Micromaster, and even Crumbs. So, I don't know what to say, man. It's a tiny version of Red Alert. That is to say, a tiny version of a good toy that's also pretty good. If you want him just for the novelty, go for it if you can find him for a good price. Don't pay scalper prices for him, though. I know some people do like to overcharge for these things. If you can get him cheap, that's probably the best. There's not much you can really complain about Red Alert. On one hand, yeah, it's a bit of a hunchback, but on the other hand, that was the G1 toy. It's referencing the G1 toy to the T. Aside from the sliding rails in the transformation, most of the flaws with this figure can't really be considered flaws, and more references to the source material. It's almost hilarious how much this toy can dodge criticism, simply because it is that accurate. On one hand, sure, you'll get some shitty toys based on shitty G1 toys, but on the other, you'll have some quite fun experiences like Red Alert. Word of warning though, do be careful not to fall into the rabbit hole. There's not just these, there's the third-party figures, which I'll get to later in this marathon, and on top of that, there are a massive amount of 3D printed versions. Since Takara cut the line short, fans have taken it upon themselves to fill in the gaps. Some of them have even made their own designs that are completely separate from the G1 toys, what the G1 toys should have been, but at a smaller scale, if that makes any sense. And I will probably get to that one day, but for now, it is way too expensive and way outside of my list. I got other things to focus on in the meantime, so eventually, maybe, I don't know. For now, I'd prefer to just focus on my Legends collection, which is almost complete. But tomorrow, let's jump right back into it. Between the pillars of the 07 movie, Revenge of the Fallen, and Beast Machines, we discover a rather interesting release, which will be discussed very shortly.